Our peaceful residential neighborhood in Stamford, Connecticut, was adorned with colorful flowers heralding the arrival of spring. In front of our white two-story colonial house, tulips were blooming brilliantly. Though we'd only lived here for a year and a half, this place had truly become our home. As I watched Ethan waiting for his school bus in the morning sunlight, I savored the happiness of our current life. The profile of my 6-year-old son waving goodbye at the front door slightly resembled my late husband, who passed away in an accident 4 years ago. My heart still aches when I think about him, who suddenly left this world leaving behind our young son. However, Ethan, who was only 2 at the time, was too young to understand the reality of losing his father. Perhaps because of this, he has grown up without deep emotional scars on his tender young heart. I met David 2 years ago at the company where I work as a part-time accountant. He was an executive from a real estate development company who visited us as a client, and from our first meeting, he struck me as sincere and gentlemanly. His mild-mannered demeanor put my heart at ease. What impressed me most was how he interacted with Ethan. When my son happened to meet him in the company break room, David showed natural kindness toward him. "I have a cool car. Would you like to see it sometime?" From such casual conversations, Ethan began to open his heart to David. After 6 months of dating, when I decided to marry him, I had some concerns. Marriage as a single mother, it's not always a choice that society celebrates. But David gently dissolved my worries. "Rachel, I want to create a new family with you and Ethan." Those words held no lies, at least that's what I believed. Life after marriage was more peaceful and happier than I had expected. Despite his busy work schedule, David always made time to spend weekends with family. Our picnics at Cove Island Park became a precious weekend tradition. Watching Ethan playing catch with David on the grass while I laid out sandwiches, those simple moments became our treasures. Our evenings at home were usually spent playing board games as a family. Ethan, being competitive, would move his pieces with a serious expression. Sometimes David would deliberately let him win, but Ethan would protest, play seriously. Watching these interactions, I would savor our happiness. 2 weeks ago, a new life joined our family, the birth of Lily. The little girl has David's well-defined features. When Ethan first met his sister at the hospital, his eyes sparkled. "I'm a big brother now." Those words were filled with pride and joy. 2-week-old Lily is a very calm baby. She rarely cries at night and nurses well. Every day when Ethan returns from school, he heads straight to Lily's room. "She's cute today too," he whispers as he peers at his sister, and as a mother, I feel immense happiness watching this big brother. David is also genuinely delighted with Lily's birth. As soon as he returns home from work, he comes to check on the baby and gazes at her for a long time. "She's truly beautiful," he says, and I could feel deep parental love in those words. Our ordinary daily life in this house, weekend shopping at Whole Foods, trying new products from Trader Joe's for dinner, sharing popcorn while watching movies as a family, these everyday moments became even more precious with the birth of our new life. Seeing Ethan respond when David calls him son, hearing Lily's tiny breathing, and the happiness filling my heart, this was my life now. But I hadn't yet noticed the shadow that was slowly but surely creeping into our peaceful days. One afternoon, as soft spring sunlight streamed in, I was sterilizing Lily's bottles in the kitchen while reflecting on Ethan's recent behavior. During the first 2 weeks after Lily was born, Ethan was an ideal big brother. After returning from school, he would wash his hands, carefully use the sanitizing spray, and then quietly peek at his sister's face. "Mom, Lily's fingers are so tiny. She smiled today." He would report such discoveries with sparkling eyes. I could hear him proudly talking about his sister when playing with friends at the neighborhood park. I became a big brother. "My sister Lily is this small," he would explain proudly, showing the baby's size with his hands. I felt reassured seeing this, believing that Ethan had fully accepted the new member of our family. His behavior at school remained unchanged, and Mrs. Jones, his teacher, hadn't reported anything concerning. Other mothers at the PTA meeting told me they saw Ethan playing energetically during recess. He continued attending Little League practice without missing a day, enjoying time with his teammates as usual. However, around the time Lily turned 2 weeks old, Ethan's behavior began to change gradually. At first, the changes were subtle. When returning from school, he would wash his hands more hurriedly than usual and go straight to Lily's room. He started doing his homework in his sister's room, bringing his textbooks and notebooks there, instead of at the dining table downstairs where he usually worked. Even when I suggested, "Wouldn't you concentrate better at the dining table?" he would just shake his head and say, "I prefer it here." Something felt off about seeing him sitting on the floor, using his knees as a desk in Lily's room where there wasn't even a proper desk. The changes grew more significant over time. Saturdays had always been his routine to practice baseball with his best friend Michael, who lived nearby, at Cove Island Park. But last weekend, when Michael came to invite him, Ethan declined, saying, "I want to stay with my sister today." As I watched his friend's disappointed figure walking away, I thought I saw a hint of sadness in Ethan's expression. Sunday was the same. After returning from church, instead of going out to play with friends as usual, he again secluded himself in Lily's room. "Ethan, don't you want to play outside? Don't you want to play with your friends?" To my questions, Ethan would just silently shake his head. "I just want to be with my sister," he would say, his voice somehow fragile. When David would return from work in the evening, Ethan would become even more determined not to leave his sister's side. Even when I called, "It's dinner time," he would say, "Just a little longer," and try to stay in the room. His posture seemed almost as if he were trying to protect his sister from something. Even during dinner, if Lily started crying, Ethan would try to rush upstairs, interrupting his meal. Even when I stopped him saying, "It's okay, Mommy will check on her," he would sit restlessly in his chair, his expression distant. When bedtime came, Ethan didn't want to return to his own room. He began begging, "I want to sleep in Lily's room." Though I initially refused, he pleaded so earnestly that I finally allowed him to bring in a sleeping bag. Despite having to sleep on the floor, Ethan smiled with relief. I discussed these changes with David. "He's just being protective of his sister." Unusually so for a boy, my husband laughed it off. Maybe he was right. But as a mother, I couldn't shake off this uneasy feeling. I visited Ethan's classroom to consult with Mrs. Jones. "He seems a bit tired lately. He sometimes falls asleep during class," she reported. Was it because he was sleeping on the floor in his sister's room? Or was something else making my son so tired? Now, as I dried the bottles while looking out the window, I saw the yellow school bus stop and Ethan hurrying toward the house. Today again, he would head straight to Lily's room. Despite my concerns, my son's puzzling behavior continued. I consulted with Dr. Brown, the pediatrician, about a week after these changes began. This is a typical response during the adaptation process to a new family member, the doctor explained in a calm tone. It's a mix of feeling responsible as a big brother and anxiety about parental attention shifting to his sister. Time will resolve this. Maybe that was true. But Ethan's behavior seemed different from a typical response. I noticed his body tensing when footsteps echoed in the hallway. This tendency became especially pronounced as David's return time approached. Though I tried to tell myself, it's just my imagination, my maternal instinct kept warning me that something was wrong. At dusk, the setting sun visible from the second-floor window began to turn red. Ethan, having just gotten off the school bus, was again hurrying toward the house. As I watched his small back, slightly bent forward from the weight of his backpack, I felt an inexplicable anxiety quietly growing in my heart. At night, I walked down the second-floor hallway, checking on Ethan. It had been an hour since the bedroom lights were turned off, but a small light still leaked from Lily's room. "Ethan, it's bedtime." Opening the door, I found Ethan curled up in his sleeping bag, still awake. The night light mounted on the wall gently illuminated his small profile. "Just a little longer," his voice carried something urgent in it. Recently, Ethan had completely refused to sleep in his own room. Every night, he would bring his sleeping bag to Lily's room to sleep. Why would he choose to sleep on the hard floor when he had a comfortable bed in his own room? It was behavior I struggled to understand. Wouldn't the bed be more comfortable? "I like it here." The same answer came back. His voice mixed both weakness and strength. When I would wake up in the middle of the night to check on them, Ethan was always still awake. This was especially noticeable on days when David returned late from work. Sometimes even after midnight, my son would still be awake, staring intently at the crib. "Are you staying up until Papa comes home?" Even when I asked this, Ethan would just silently shake his head. But I could feel his body tense when the front door would open and David's footsteps would come up the stairs. This change had begun to affect his school life as well. At last week's PTA meeting, Mrs. Jones shared some concerning observations. "He's been falling asleep more frequently during class lately. He even fell asleep with his head on his desk during math class. No wonder, since my son staying up late couldn't possibly wake up properly in the morning. Apparently, he was falling asleep on the school bus too." Other mothers increasingly expressed concern, saying things like, "Ethan doesn't seem to have his usual energy lately." When I consulted David, my husband wouldn't take it seriously. "It's natural for a boy to want to protect his sister. But such a dramatic change in his behavior. You're overthinking it. He's just adjusting to the new environment." Even though he dismissed it like that, my maternal anxiety didn't subside. Rather, I felt something off about David's reaction too. My husband, who usually worried about even trivial matters concerning Ethan, seemed oddly detached about this issue. This disparity made the unease in my heart gradually grow stronger. It was when this anxiety nearly reached its limit that I consulted with the school counselor at Elizabeth Elementary. This might be a psychological adaptation process to having a new family member. But let's keep watching him just in case. The professional's words didn't completely erase my concerns. That evening, we decided to watch a movie as a family for the first time in a while. As usual, we tried to enjoy an animated film while sharing popcorn David had bought from Whole Foods. But Ethan's gaze was constantly fixed on the baby monitor showing Lily. Even during funny scenes, he no longer showed the smiles he used to. During the movie, Lily let out a small cry. Ethan jumped up as if startled and tried to rush upstairs. "It's okay, Mommy will check on her," but even when I stopped him, the tension in my son's body didn't ease. I grew increasingly worried about Ethan's behavior. Every night, I would go to check on his sleeping face. Even in sleep, his expression wasn't peaceful, instead showing what looked like fear of something. One night, when I woke up to Lily's crying, I passed Ethan in the hallway on my way to the baby's room. Despite it being the middle of the night, my son was completely awake. When I asked, "What's wrong?" he only answered, "Bathroom," before returning to his room. His back, illuminated by moonlight, looked strangely lonely. When I consulted Dr. Brown again, he carefully explained, children show various reactions when new family members join. Especially children who have lost their biological father can be more sensitive. Maybe that was true. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan's behavior was different from just an adjustment process. There was a desperate quality to it, as if he were trying to protect his precious sister from something, from someone. I was desperately trying to understand what was happening in my son's mind. But Ethan remained stubbornly silent. I still hadn't reached the truth behind that silence. That night was an unusually cold spring night. The clock was approaching midnight. Woken by Lily's crying, I quietly headed upstairs. Pale moonlight filtered through the hallway window. When I reached the baby's room, I heard a faint sound from inside. Quietly opening the door, I saw Ethan sitting in his sleeping bag in the moonlit room, staring intently at the crib. When my son noticed me and turned around, his expression made my heart nearly stop. It was an expression a 6-year-old child should never show, a mix of fear and determination. Ethan hurriedly put his finger to his lips, making a small, shoot sound. "Papa's coming." That whisper reached my ears like a knife cutting through the darkness. At that moment, the sound of the front door opening echoed from downstairs. The sound of David coming home. His footsteps were more irregular than usual. I could tell he'd been drinking. Ethan's body tensed, and he moved to position himself like a barrier in front of the crib. I recognized that gesture. In an instant, I understood all of my son's inexplicable behavior over the past few weeks. Footsteps coming up the stairs. Ethan's breathing became rough. I stood beside my son and placed my hand on his small shoulder. He was trembling. The door burst open, and David appeared. His usual gentlemanly demeanor was gone, his eyes bloodshot. My husband hesitated for a moment when he noticed my presence. "Oh, you're still up." His voice contained an unfamiliar coldness. "Don't touch Lily," Ethan shouted. His small body desperately trying to protect the crib. In that moment, all the previous mysteries connected. Staying up late in his sister's room was to protect her from David. His restlessness at school and refusing to play with friends came from anxiety about leaving his sister alone. And above all, the reason he couldn't tell me, his mother, the truth. Shut up. When David took a step forward, I could see Ethan's body trembling minutely. In that gesture, I read traces of violence that had already been inflicted multiple times. You'll be the reason this family falls apart. You'll make your mother sad. He must have been threatening my son with such words. Even before Lily was born, David had resented Ethan for not being his biological child. While playing the role of the ideal stepfather on the surface, in his heart he saw my son as an obstacle. And after his own child was born, those twisted feelings began to surface. Only Lily is my family. David spat out those words in his drunken state. His obsession with creating a perfect family of his own had manifested as abuse toward his stepchild. Ethan had been enduring desperately. To protect his mother's happiness. To protect his new sister. I can endure it because Mama is smiling. He must have held such brave thoughts in his small heart. I have to watch because the baby can't protect herself. Ethan said this with a trembling voice. A 6-year-old child was trying to protect his sister from an adult's madness. His bravery made tears overflow from my eyes. When David took another step forward, I had reflexively taken out my cell phone. My fingers trembled as I pressed the emergency number. The moment my husband, in his drunken state, tried to raise his hand against Ethan, my mind was perfectly clear. Don't move. My voice was calmer than I expected. On the other end of the phone, the operator's voice echoed. In the moonlight, Ethan still stood in front of the crib. The proud back of a small hero. It was the night when the truth hidden behind all the previous silence was finally revealed in the quiet darkness. The sound of police sirens approaching broke the night's stillness. David stood frozen as if suddenly sobered, and I instinctively positioned myself in front of Ethan and Lily. I knew all along. Ethan's small voice trembled in the darkness. When Papa pushed me down, when he hit me, I couldn't tell because it would make Mama sad, but when it came to Lily. When the police arrived, David's shoulders slumped in resignation, seeming to have lost all will to resist. The time had come for the ugly truth hidden beneath his gentlemanly mask to finally come to light. I knelt down and held Ethan tightly. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Apologies were all I could manage. My son's small body trembled in my arms. How much fear had he fought against? How much loneliness had he endured? Lily let out a small cry, and Ethan immediately looked toward the crib. His reaction connected all my previous feelings of unease. He had been desperately trying to protect his sister from an invisible enemy. When the officers entered the room, moonlight broke through the clouds, enveloping the room in a soft light that seemed to herald a new dawn. David was arrested without resistance, and his figure being placed in the police car was illuminated by the street lights at the front entrance. Mrs. Rachel, it's dangerous for you and your children to stay here. I recommend evacuating to your parents' home or somewhere safe. At the officer's words, I made an immediate decision. That night, I held Ethan and Lily close as we took refuge at my mother's bed and breakfast in Boston. In the car, Ethan remained silent the entire time, continuously holding his sleeping sister's hand. The trial lasted 3 months. David was charged with child abuse and domestic violence, and evidence and testimony kept coming to light. Ethan's testimony was given via video call. Papa said, "I was bad. That I was a child who couldn't make Mama and Lily happy." The courtroom fell silent at Ethan's trembling voice. The sentence was 5 years in prison. A restraining order was also issued, prohibiting David from approaching or contacting our family. The divorce was finalized, and I was granted full custody. "Is it really over?" When Ethan asked in a small voice, I nodded firmly. "Yes, no one will threaten us anymore." After meeting with the prosecutor, Ethan gradually began to tell everything. "I wanted to see Mama smiling, but Papa said, 'You'll make your mother unhappy.' After Lily was born, Papa's eyes changed. I thought I had to protect the baby." Listening to his confession, my heart felt like it would break. "I'm sorry I didn't notice." "No, it's my fault for not telling you. Because I didn't want Mama to be sad." At Ethan's words, I held my son tightly. Through a mother-child support group, we found a small apartment in the Boston suburbs. On moving day, Ethan showed a slight smile when he first saw his new room. "Can you sleep peacefully here?" "Yes, but can I still check on Lily sometimes?" "Of course. But there's nothing to be afraid of anymore." We continued counseling once a week. Therapist Jane carefully helped heal the wounds in Ethan's heart. "Ethan, you're such a brave boy. What you did to protect your sister was truly wonderful." With those words, confidence gradually returned to Ethan's eyes. At his new school, Ethan slowly expanded his circle of friends. "Mom, today I played baseball with Mike and Jason." His voice bounced with excitement in his after-school report. A year has passed. Spring sunlight streaming through the window brightly illuminates our new living room. 7-year-old Ethan was playing with Lily, who's about to turn 1. "Look, Lily learned another new word. Can she call my name now?" "Hey Lily, say it again." We've made friends with other parents in the neighborhood. Sarah, a single mother, has become like a comrade in arms who shares similar experiences. "Rachel, your children are truly wonderful." "Yes, they're my pride and joy." My work-from-home job is going well, and the path to financial independence is gradually opening up. Through activities with the mother-child support group, I've been able to help other mothers in similar situations. "Hey, Mom." One evening, watching us from a park bench, Ethan suddenly whispered, "We're the happiest now, aren't we?" Lily smiled contentedly in her brother's arms, and I embraced them both. "Yes, we'll always be a happy family, just the 3 of us." "I'll protect us." "No, we'll all protect each other together." Ethan's words brought tears to my eyes. The wind passing through nearby trees gently caressed our hair. Our wounded hearts were surely healing. And together, we move forward with new hope, the 3 of us working together. The spring sunlight gently and warmly illuminated our future.